Happy Sabbath, church. Thank you for the beautiful song, and congratulations for the family reunion. May you have a great time together. It is always good to be here in the Isaac Church, and I don't tire to say it's always like coming home. Good to see all of you, and good to see so many new faces and so many guests in this church community. I would like to invite you to participate in a story with me, and an old story, which is in fact the beginning of all stories that were yet to come. It was the most tremendous and amazing week this world had ever seen. It was the week when great things happened through the words of God. Through His words, the heavens and the earth were created, and the waters parted from each other, that dry land was to be seen. And out of nowhere, grass started to grow, and trees began to blossom. The sun and the moon and the stars found their place. And through the words of God, the seas were filled through all sorts of fish. And the skies were filled by the birds who are roaming through the skies. And as a day passed by, animals were created of all sorts to fill the earth. And in the end, as if it was the crowning end of this creation week, God spoke and said, "Let us make man in our image, like us. Let us make man as ruler of the earth." And God creates man and woman. He blesses them, and He gives them all the things that He has created. He invites them to rule over the birds of the air, the animals on the land, and the fish of the sea. And the good trees that He had planted, He says they are for them to eat. And God seems to be happy by what He just did. And He looks back at everything that He has created, and as if He is filled with a deep gratitude and joy of what just happened throughout this week, He says, "It is very, very good. Very good." And we sense that a world is created which is finished, and life can start. God has looked back and said, "It is all good." And then something happens. I would like to invite you to open with me to Genesis, to the book of Genesis, chapter 1. And I'll begin reading from verse 31. Then God saw everything that He had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended His work which He had done, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it He rested from all His work which God had created and made. I would like to invite you to read these words, which may be familiar to you and to many of us who come from the Christian Adventist tradition, through new eyes. As I tried to do so, and as I plunged in the story of creation and came across these words, as if I read those words for the first time, I was bewildered. I was surprised, because here things happen which I did not expect to happen. As I already mentioned, we sense that in verse 31 that God looks at everything that He has made and says it is very good, and that everything is finished. And if we did not know that the verses which I read would come, we would expect life is going to begin as God has intended it. That man and woman who are created in His image would do accordingly to what God said to them and start discovering the land and exercising their responsibility over the creation which God had just given into their hands. But what happens? We are told, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. I'm in chapter 2, verse 1. And there we would say, yes, we follow you. We follow you. We understand. That's what we just read. That's what we just realized. And then the author goes on to say in verse 2, and on the seventh day God ended His work which He had done, and rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done. Now, something happens which creates questions. On the seventh day, God ended His work? Do I get it right? Didn't God end His work on the sixth day already? And not only that, didn't God look back to all the week and said, it is very good? Aren't those the words which we just read? And interestingly, every day God said, it is good. It is good. Almost every day, besides on the second day. Throughout the whole week, God says, good. In respect to the day on which something happened. And on the sixth day, He looks back at everything. Not only on the sixth day, He looks back at everything, at the whole week, and says, it is very good. But now we are told that God finished His work on the seventh day. So we would ask, what happened? What did God do and create on the seventh day? And why were we given the impression that everything was finished, and all of a sudden we hear not on the sixth day everything is finished, but on the seventh day? So, what is going to take place? What does God finish on the seventh day, which He had not on the sixth day? And there we go. We read in the second part of verse 2, He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had done. God finished His work on the seventh day. And what happens on that day? Basically, nothing. God rests. God rests from all His works which He had created throughout the week. So here we read that creation was finished not when everything was done and man was made on the sixth day, but when God rested. Did God get tired? Of course, 6 days of hard work of creating the whole world, that's a whole lot of work, isn't it? But again, how did God create the world? Through the words of His mouth. He spoke and things happened. So there seems to be no reason for God to be tired. But He rests. And the day on which He rests is the day of which we are told that creation is finished. And not only that, let's move on with verse 3, which raises the next question. What does God do? He blesses the seventh day and sanctifies it because He rested on that day. First question, God is finished on the seventh day? What is finished on the seventh day? Sixth day. And secondly, what is the meaning of God's rest? Is He tired? Probably not. But He rests. And what does that mean? And third question, of all things, what is so special about God resting on the seventh day that this day declares to be a special day? Come along with me. The day which is most ineffective, the day on which basically nothing happened, then God resting is declared to be a special day? How come? Wouldn't the first day deserve it, when the heavens and the earth were created? Or perhaps the fourth day when sun and moon and stars took their place, something happened. Or of all days, wouldn't the sixth day deserve to be declared a special day? Isn't that the day when God made man in His own image to rule over the world, God made man as His counterpart, and haven't we all heard these words that man is the crown of creation? How many of you have heard this sentence? Man is the crown of creation. That's the impression we would have, but not for this story. In this story, the crown of creation, the peak of creation, is the day when nothing happened than God resting, doing nothing. And that day is declared to be a holy and a special day. Why so? I would like to share some of my discoveries with you as of why it is so, and the answers that I have found towards these questions. And those answers have become very profound to me, and I believe they are very profound to all of us. The first thing which I realize through these words, that it's not about us. It's not about you. It's not about me. Ultimately, it's not about our rulership over this earth, even though God has made us rulers in this world so that we do something out of it, so that we can be creative, so that we can enjoy our relationships. But these words show us creation begins with God. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. And creation finds its goal in God. Because here we read in verse 1, chapter 2, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished when God rested on the seventh day. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in the end, God rested from creating the heavens and the earth. The story of creation begins with God, and it finds its fulfillment in God. Or in the words of Paul, which Martin read to you from Romans chapter 11, from God, through God, and to God, all things are created. And to Him be the glory forever. Amen. You know, sometimes we take ourselves very seriously as human beings. And for many good reasons. God wanted us here. God created us in His own image. We enjoy our lives with the people who we love. We feel pain. We feel sickness. We go through rough times which nobody can really understand. And as the garden of prayer was taking place and as the requests were shared in this community and the praises were shared, and when Martin mentioned that many of us in this room are going through all kinds of challenges, sometimes challenges that God only knows and that only God can understand. And many of us go through times and through questions for which we don't have answers. And at times, even God seems to be silent. We're not even sure how and in which way He is involved in our lives. And sometimes the difficulties that we go through seem to be so big that we don't know how we're going to face them. And sometimes things run well for us. We smile, we feel encouraged. We experience community. We eat, we drink, and experience that things run well. And to make things complicated, suffering and joy go hand in hand. They're so mixed. Our lives seem to be so volatile and ever-changing and so mixed of so many good things and so many bad things at the same time. And the danger that can happen as we go through our lives with all the goods and the bads is that we think it's all about us. It's about us and how we make it through. The first thing this text reminds me of, first and foremost, it's not about us. It's about you and me realizing in the beginning God and in the end God. We are in the middle and acknowledge this mystery, bow down and say, God, you are God. You are God through all the things that I understand. And you are God through all the things I don't understand. My story begins with you and it ends in you. And whatever happens in this world, good or bad, you are God. You are the beginning and the end. Sometimes your paths seem to be clear to me, and sometimes they're not. But you are God. Sometimes I feel joy, and sometimes I feel pain. But you are God. My story begins with you, and it ends with you. You are God. Secondly, I was wondering, or I asked myself, and I would like to invite you to participate in this question as well, of what God did on that seventh day when He rested. What did God do? Did He go and catch some sleep? Was He just quiet and looked at what He created and He experienced His joy? What does God do when He rests? And I want to imagine, or I feel like in this story, that God's rest was not a kind of rest in which He removed Himself from creation, but I sense that He related to the things which He just created. And I want to imagine that when God created man in His own image, as we are told on the sixth day, we sense that He made man and woman according to His likeness. He spoke to them and He created them in a way that they could speak to each other. And I would like to imagine that on this seventh day, that God interacted with them. That, I don't know, perhaps He took a walk with them through the garden. Here they are, man and woman, freshly created, and a God who enjoys their presence, and He spends that day with them. Or did He just sit on His throne and He smiled at creation? I'm not sure. But I sense that it was a day on which God interacted with the human beings which He had just created. And now, seen from the perspective of the two persons which were there, the first day they experience in their lives, the very first full day they experience in their lives, is a day of community. A day in which they spend time with each other, and as I believe, they spend time with their God who just created them. And here, two doors seem to open up for me, and I would like to invite you that we go through them. First of all, when God created man, on which day did He create him and her? On the sixth day. And we can say they have all the strength that they have. And they can start their life and start doing things in this world. But the first day they experience is a day in which they don't have to do anything, but experience that everything belongs to them. God gives them everything without them doing anything. And the first day they experience is to rest and spend time with their God and with each other. The two of them did not deserve what they got. They did not work hard for it to prove that they are good enough or strong enough or able enough for God to entrust them. In fact, the very first thing that they experience after they are created is that God says to them, you know what? It all belongs to you. You are safe. It all belongs to you. You can rest. It all belongs to you. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to deserve it. It all belongs to you. And this for me is a very strange thing, very revolutionary, because I'm not taught that way. That's not how we experience our lives in so many ways. In order to get something, we have to deserve it. That's what we've learned. We have to be nice, we have to be good, we have to be hardworking. We have to go to school, we have to go to university, or we have to somehow do something to make it. Which is true. Which is true. Because if we don't, we're not going to make it. We have to learn, we have to relate, we have to do something in order to survive. But this verse reminds me, even if that is true, that we have to work and do something in order to get something, but ultimately, what we have comes from God. And it is as if we are invited to watch out and not think it is the work of our hands that sustains us. And it is easy to think so, because if we don't work, if we don't do something, nothing is going to happen. But we are invited to realize, if we speak, if we relate, if we work, if we move about, whatever we do, without God, it would not be possible. It all comes from Him. And secondly, and this is very, very profound for me, you know, we don't only define ourselves as human beings through the things that we do or being nice or this or that. The problem is sometimes we make our self-worth dependent on it. That we go like, you know, if I'm not nice, people don't like me. Or if we feel like, you know, I don't understand things, I'm worth nothing. Yeah. I don't know how many of you have gone through things that, you know, you're not good at something, and instead of saying, you know, I'm not good at that, you said like, you know, oh, I'm all bad. Yeah. Let me just share my story with you. I was really bad at math, right? I was not good at math. Once in a while I had luck and I kind of made it through. But sometimes, many times, I had bad grades in math. And when that happened, I did, at times, of course not always, I did not say, Simret, you're bad at math. Work hard, face it, do what you can. I said, Simret, you are stupid. You are stupid. Ever felt that? You know? You go like, everybody understands it, but I'm stupid. I don't get it. This generalization, you know, or, you know, somebody else gets the job and not you. I'm not good enough. Or someone else gets the attention that you wish you would have, and you go like, you know, if I was good, if I was talented, if I could speak, if I could do this, if I could do that, I would get attention, I would be loved, but I'm not, you know, so there is something wrong with me. At many times we make our worth dependent on our achievements. But the problem is, that is not a safe ground to build upon. Even if we get that attention because we are looking good, or we are smart, or we are intelligent, or we are hardworking, that does not give us security, because we ask ourselves, do you really love me for who I am, or because I'm nice and good looking and hardworking and this and that? Yeah. We want to be loved and appreciated for who we are. Dot. Nothing more and nothing less. We want to sense a type of security that reminds us, irrespective of who I am and what I do or do not do, of my successes or failures or whatever happens in my life, we want the security that we are loved and accepted as we are. And the story of the seventh day is for me that type of a story in which God says, it's all good. It's all good. All you have comes from me, and you are secure. And you don't have to earn it. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to achieve it. You don't have to kind of do this or do that in order to be worth it. All that you have comes from me, and you can rest in that realization. And now watch this, sisters and brothers. I believe that is the reason why God calls us, you and me, to actually rest on the seventh day and not to go about our daily works. By not going to school or learning or studying or working or doing this and that, it's not just that that we say, rest on the seventh day, so don't work, right? I know of people who they can't wait for the seventh day to pass by them so they can deal with their businesses. And in fact, what is 1 hour of studying? That's not much, is it? Or a few hours of working. Come on, give me a break. That's not a problem. It's not about the amount of studying or working. It's about the statement that we make. And now watch this. By resting on the seventh day, it's not just that we abstain from work. We make a statement. And that statement is, God, I am safe in your hands. You gave me life. You sustain me. You love me. I don't have to work for it. I don't have to deserve it. Everything is there. So even this day on which we might, just go to church and rest and relax is a statement by itself. Because we are saying, God, everything that I have comes from you. And you are the one who cares for me, who sustains me. And not working on the seventh day is reminding us of the very fact that it is God who cares for us and who gives us our values as human beings. I talked about 2 doors. The other door. The first seventh day in the history of this world. What happens? God is there. He is there, she is there, and they just spend time together. And that's it. They just walk around, roam around, or talk. So you're the one who made us, yeah? Wow, you did a good job, So tell us more about yourself, Wow, yeah, who are we? Who are you? And God's smiling, yeah, I'm God, and yeah, let's take our time. Let's take a walk. Come on, eat something. Whatever he said to them. I don't know, right? And the 2 of them, you look great. No, you don't look bad either. All right, come on. Let's take a walk. Have some fruits. Wow, that's some nice apple out there. Goodness. You like apple? I love the mango. Come on, more of that mango. I don't know what they did, but it's a day of, they just spent time together. And now you can let your imagination roll. And that day on which nothing else happens than people are just together with each other and with God is the blessed and the sanctified, the special day. And this, sisters and brothers and friends, seems to remind me, or seems to remind us, that the core of life are not the things that we achieve or that we reach or that we make or that we create, the things that we cook and the things that we build and all of that. The core of life seems to be community. Being with each other, relating to each other, relating to God. And in fact, all the things that we do find their meaning if they serve the cause of relationships, of bringing us nearer to each other and nearer to our God. And it can kind of sound so abstract to you, but it's not so abstract. Let me ask you a question. Older generation and younger generation. How many of you got your licenses? Right? Anybody got his driver's license? Many of us, right? Right. So, what are one of the first things that you did when you got The driver's license, when you made the exam, you did the driving, sweating all over, and he told you, it was not that good, but you made it, right? You got through this. Yeah. So what's the first thing? One of the first things that you did when that happened? Yeah, thank God, right? So, and take the phone or go say, hey, got my license. Younger generation, post it on Facebook, right? And get all the likes that you can get, right? Yeah. Got it, right? Like, yeah, PP and hearts and all those, what do you call them, emoticons or whatever you guys put on that web, right? Yeah. That's so natural. Or when you do an exam, or when you get a new job, or in fact, even when you cook something, when does good food taste the best? When you eat it alone or with someone? Of course, rhetorical questions. With someone, right? The best food or the best compliment that you can have about your food is that someone likes it and that you enjoy it together. And even if we work, every day we have different kinds of work, at the street, in the bank, at school, whatever, what we do, we want it to be meaningful, So the things that we do gain their meaning, that they mean something to others and that they help us grow or they kind of connect us. And the seventh day seems to remind us that the things that we do are there for us to grow together, to relate to each other. And God does not bless a day when something happens, but He blesses a day when nothing happens, than people relating to each other. As if He wanted to say, all the things that happened during the 6 days serve the seventh day. And now watch this. I have a story for you, and then we summarize and end our sermon. In the first century after Christ, Jerusalem and Palestine were under Roman occupation, as we know, right? In the times of Jesus. And there, the Romans kind of looked down on the Jews because they were keeping the Sabbath, and they thought, this lazy people, they don't want to do anything on the seventh day. And there was this philosopher, this Jewish philosopher in the first century. His name was Philo from Alexandria. He was a Jewish philosopher, and he made it a point to explain to the Romans that the Jews were not, lazy people by resting on the seventh day. So he wrote, and he said, hey, Romans, I'm saying it in my words, right? It's not a quotation. He said, Romans, the Jews do not rest on the seventh day because they are lazy. They rest on the seventh day so that they can get enough strength and power to work hard for the coming 6 days. Right? So he says, we rest to get energy, and then we can work even harder in the coming 6 days. That's the reason why we rest on the seventh day. Philo argued that the seventh day was there for the other 6 days. And in fact, some of Philo is in our churches as well. Because what do we pray sometimes, or what do we say? God, thank you for giving us the Sabbath so that we can have new strength for the coming week, right? Ever prayed that prayer, said that, The Sabbath is there for us to gain strength for the new week. And there is some truth to that. If you rest, of course you get some strength for the new week. But, watch this. The creation story turns it around. Not the Sabbath is there for the coming 6 days. The 6 days are there for the seventh day. The culmination is the seventh day. All that you do on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shall serve the seventh day. Meaning the realization everything comes from God and is sustained through God. I worship. And secondly, God is the one who sustains me, who gives me value, who takes care of me, and not what I do ultimately. And thirdly, the core of my life is the relationships that I have to God and to others. And the seventh day is a weekly reminder. And it is a type of reminder which is so concrete and real. And it is a type of reminder, dear friends, in which you and me find ourselves in right now. This very minute. The seventh day is here. It surrounds us. We don't have to go to it. It comes to us. And it does not depend on us believing that this is a holy and a special day. It does not need us for that. It is there. If we say, "You are God, we worship you," it is there. If we say, "You are not God, we don't worship you," it is there. If we work, it is there. If we rest, it is still there. If we are nice to each other, it is there. If we insult each other and are mean to each other, it is still there. If we curse, it is there. If we bless, it is there. Irrespective of our doings, this day is there. And it surrounds us. And this day is a reminder of who God is, irrespective of us acknowledging Him or not acknowledging Him. Irrespective of the things that we do or don't do, God is God. And God sustains us. God loves us. God carries us. And even in the moments when we think we are the ones who are responsible, ultimately, we are carried and we are safe. And God, of course, invites us to participate in His rest. Because when we do, it makes a difference for us. But even if we don't, it is there. So whatever it is that you are going through today in your life, maybe you are happy because things are working well for you, or maybe you are sad because things are not going good for you. Perhaps you are going through challenges. Perhaps you have unanswered questions. Perhaps there are things that you don't understand in this world. Perhaps there are things that you don't understand in your own lives. Perhaps you are just happy to be here with your friends. But wherever you are and wherever I am, this day reminds us God is God. This day reminds us we are made to relate our lives to Him and to each other. And this day reminds us that God will carry us